All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Kingdom of the Kael Isles. Yes, this is my first completely custom, homebrewed D&D adventure. These guys have been playing together for almost 3 years, some of them. And the game's been going on for almost 3 years, so pretty cool. Um, Lots of stuff has happened recently. You may notice that um, names don't 100% line up with the characters. We're technically waiting for one more player that's running a little bit late. So when he gets here, everybody will shift to where they're supposed to be. Until he gets here, um, until we until he gets here, they're just going to have the wrong names. But Kata is the girl with the cat ear headphones, and Willow is actually the girl with the long dark hair, and then Avok is the only other boy right now with the lovely groomed beard.
You
Yeah, I like your beard. It's very nice.
It
I'm
needs a bit
gonna
of
have to
trim.
turn off my phone if this keeps happening. Who
Yeah,
the heck is so pop? What is?
this happened right before we went live, people.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to mute my. This is the first time I've done this during a game. Normally, I like having notifications and stuff like that. But dear lord, you guys aren't finding that many secrets. All right, we are back. So, other than some misnames on the overlay right now, um, to kind of bring everyone back into the game and what's happened since it's been a little bit since
Yeah.
um, we've had an episode.
It's
These
been a
guys
while.
were finally able to overthrow the oppressive Eladrin government of the Kael Isles during their fight with the Council of One. Um, uh, they saw a friend from before that showed up and did some stuff, and they got transported to a different plane of existence. And as soon as they got there, they realized that they arrived in the middle of a massive war between the elemental planes and the Feywild, which is known as the Verdant Empire, after the name of the governing body that kind of rules over um, the lands there. So they slowly made their way with a new friend named Aramis, who brought them to the capital of the Verdant Empire, Alanduo, and they met with the Eternal Empress and her husband, the Prince Consort. They kind of explained a little bit about what was going on with the war between the elemental planes. And here comes Fade, our cleric, and once um, uh, uh, once that once that finished, these guys all decided that their main focus was to get back to the prime material plane, and hopefully be able to protect their families and friends and loved ones that they had left behind. And when they asked for help doing that, the Eternal Empress kind of told them, you know what, I don't have the ability or resources to help you. So they left a little bit dejected, but were paid for their information fairly well. And then they had a shopping episode where they bought some new stuff. And yeah, at the end of it, Fade had a kind of prophetic dream that gave him a little bit of hope. And that's basically where we left off. As mentioned to you before, you're lodging for the night. If I remember correctly, you guys may have to correct a few things for me. The lodging, your lodging for the night had already been paid for, but going forward, you guys are kind of on your own.
Okay.
Thought we had the week.
The week, yeah, you have a week. Thank you. So you guys have a week in this relatively nice inn in one of the nicer parts of Alanduel, which is this massive, almost city-state size city. And you guys have explored parts of it. You've gone to basically the magic district, the shopping district, and gone into a few places to find various things, but for the most part, you haven't seen the vast majority of the city because it would take you months, if not years, to actually see the entire city. It's that large. So, yeah, it's morning. Do you guys have anything you want to do before you kind of you guys have two different suites, and each have your own room in the suite. So there's the boys' suite and the girls' suite.
Though I believe Willow is waking up in the boys' suite.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys. Mm.
It was completely innocent.
A drunken crying fest.
Yeah, you know, it
We need
happened.
that catharsis.
So anyway, this stream is brought to you by V8 Splash. No, but if you want to, pay me for drinking your stuff on stream. So yeah, you guys are waking up. Is there any prep work or anything you guys want to do before you kind of meet down in the restaurant area of the inn?
Well, if I recall correctly, Avok is probably waking up from a massive hangover. So,
Yeah, you were brilliant enough to request the really hard stuff.
Yeah, not the ultra hard stuff because I've had experienced that before, but slightly less harder than that.
So,
Okay. Anyways, so
your head probably
Avok,
hurts. We'll say you have the poison condition for the first hour of the day.
that's fair. But yeah, so yeah, Avok just gets up like, motherfucker. Ugh. Looks around. Fuck, it's not a dream. Still.
But it's a very soft bed that you're almost lying in.
We tried.
Kind of half in, half out. The sheets are silk.
Okay. Fuck. Okay. Ava exits his room and sees
And there's
Willow
that
and
little. Well,
yeah,
you
see
guys have the little living room in between your two rooms, and then Fade and Willow are technically in Fade's room, so you wouldn't be able to see her.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I do walk out of my room. Do I happen upon you two exiting your room?
I guess.
I mean, I imagine Willow wakes up a little confused as to how she ended up in the bed because she fell asleep on the floor. Did Fade sleep on the floor?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So she just wakes up a little confused and nods, assuming, she's tiny, that you picked her up and put her in the bed. Little headache, but she's been there before, so not too much.
I mean, you're a wizard. If you want a dimension door to your room, you know where your room is.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Figured I'd put it out there. It does make the walk of shame slightly less shameful.
It's not a walk of shame, and so Willow wouldn't think that.
No, I'm just saying, like, when you think about it, wizards, especially when you start dealing with, like, teleportation circles, you never have to really worry about the walk of shame.
True. Very true.
Okay, so...
I have no idea how I got onto this. So Avok's awake. Fade and Willow, you guys wake up roughly about the same time. Fade, you are significantly less comfortable. Like Willow, you feel great, other than a little bit of a hangover. Like again, the bed is very, very soft and it's silk sheets and everything like that. Fade, the floor is less soft. It's very floor-like. I'm assuming you covered yourself, like pulled a sheet off or something, so you at least had.
I don't know how Fade reacts to that dream. I think he's just so content. He probably would have just like straight passed out, like no blink. Like he would wake up cold if that's what happens. But yeah,
okay. No, that's fine. So Willow, as you wake up, you kind of, because you remember your room, bits and pieces of it, because you weren't like blackout drunk.
Oh no.
But buzzed enough that your memory's a little fuzzy. And you know that your bed was on the opposite side of the room and the door was on the opposite side of the room, and then you start piecing together going to Fade and you guys kind of crying together and then nothing. And so yeah, you look around, you see Fade is on the floor, unconscious but strangely content looking.
She looks down kind of guilty that she slept in the bed and he slept on the floor.
As that happens, Fade, you wake up.
I feel like the first time in a long time, like, she's okay. Like, even before, like, the whole dad thing and the whole end of our realm, like, he's never been at peace. Ever since he started clerical training, he's never been, like, okay. And Faye just kind of, like, gets up with a weird look at life and good morning, and just starts getting his armor on and ready to go outside.
Do I recognize that?
Roll an insight check.
Okay.
Probably get my dice out.
You guys probably should.
18.
Yeah, you haven't known Fade for that long, but you're going on a few months now, so you've gotten used to his mannerisms. And one of the things, because you've growing up in the Platinum City, you've met clerics before, and depending on which deity they served, clerics kind of all had the same thing kind of going on. They were selfless, relatively humble, and there was always a hint of fear in them, because they were constantly being watched by a paladin. So that's kind of what you saw from clerics. They were never really because worship. You did you weren't aware that there were clerics of the Dark Lady. That was a secret thing. So most clerics you knew were really nice, kind of laid back, except for the fact that they were afraid that the dude walking next to them would kill them at any moment. And Fade has always had like the weight of the world on him, it felt like. And today he doesn't. He seems lighter. His step seems lighter. His actions seem like he has more energy. He doesn't have that kind of dejected, kind of sunken look that he's had since the day you met him. So yeah, you notice something is different.
Well, what does that mean? As we wake up in the room after a drunken night.
That's all he needed. It's very lonely being a cleric.
That aside, Willow kind of acknowledges but doesn't call it out, doesn't want to break the magic yet, just smiles and looks at Fade and says, "Thank you for listening."
You do realize that you are still clothed in absolutely everything that you came to his room in. So you probably took off your armor, but not a whole lot else.
I don't have armor.
Oh yeah, you don't wear armor. So yeah, you're in. You slept in your clothes.
Yep. Done it plenty of times before.
Keep forgetting
Yeah.
wizards, no armor.
Yeah. So as he goes to get his armor on, she kind of steps out and goes back towards her room, checking Kata.
So yeah, if you step out of Fade's room, he thought you noticed that.
Yeah, as soon as you step out, you see kind of a shocked-looking Avok, and then Avok. One of the things you did notice is there's some chairs and kind of lounges around, and then at the center there was a table with a card on it that basically just said, "Would you like breakfast?" And there was a pen next to it, and there was a box that said yes or no. I'm assuming you would have checked the yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as soon as you did that, that disappeared, and the table was filled with warm breads and bacon and eggs, and just a really nice hearty breakfast.
Good.
So you're kind of shoving your face full of food. Out walks Willow.
Gotcha. Give myself a hangover cure. Okay.
Yeah. And there's coffee and
Smells wonderful.
Did you just come out of Fade's room?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Fell asleep. We were talking last night.
Huh.
I'm gonna go check on Kata, make sure she got the memo on the breakfast thing.
Okay.
Willow walks out.
Yep.
Avok, through kind of the fuzz of your hangover, the wheels are slowly turning. You're like, that was an interesting conversation. Kata, you wake up very, very comfortable.
She's still a little worried if we did the right thing by refusing the Empress's offer, though. But she quickly forgets it as she probably smells breakfast.
Well, again, in order for breakfast to come, basically, you have to check on the little card. It's a magic piece of paper.
If I've walked in and it hasn't happened, I'll do it. So you can still wake up and smell
So,
breakfast.
Kata, you probably have like some rituals and things like that you do as you wake up. Just not so much like magical, just like things that you do every morning, stretching and the stuff like that. So in the middle of kind of your warm up routine, you suddenly smell fresh bread and eggs and bacon and all this food. Just the smell just instantly appears, and you open your door and you see Willow there, I'm assuming sitting down and getting something to eat.
Breakfast?
Breakfast!
So, Fade, you smell the breakfast shortly. When Willow leaves, you smell breakfast wafting through your door, and you can hear Avok very loudly curing his hangover.
Just kind of like we'll button up the last couple clasps and put on or readjust the gauntlet, get it nice and tight, and just kind of sit on the bed and.
Mm-hmm. The
Okay.
new rune etched in the gauntlet still, you can still feel the runes themselves, even when they're unpowered. You can feel them kind of on your skin below the gauntlet, despite the fact that they're carved into the gauntlet itself. You can feel them. So it feels a little bit weird with this new rune on there, but
And I know, Fade knows that he's not going to be able to talk to the Dark Lady anymore, at least for the time being, but he also remembers her basically asking for haste. And after kind of like, I guess, recentering himself here in the just in this moment, he gets up and walks with purpose downstairs and checks the yes on the slip and quickly eats a meal like a soldier almost. Just,
the meal is in your little living room in between your quarters in your suite.
oh yeah,
So you don't even have to go downstairs.
take that, grab the plate, and eat on the walk. Just
And
All right,
both
guys.
suites have a small balcony that overlooks the city itself that you guys can enjoy your breakfasts on, or you can stay inside. Again, you guys are put up in a swanky hotel.
sure. And then I will just kind of approach Avok and say, "So, are we gonna go find this soldier's outfitter or whatever?"
Yeah. We definitely need to hit the military stuff, because clearly they have all the shit that I need. Which, yeah. By the way, so you and Willow, that's the thing?
Boy, I have to roll a dice here.
We're in a separate room, Katja. We don't know.
Yeah, she doesn't know what he's talking about.
Faye's just like, you must still be drunk.
Hey, do what you guys want. I just like, I don't know. When it comes to something like that, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, like zero acknowledgement after that. Just, you must be drunk.
Alright, that's fair. Anyways, so yeah, I guess, well, ladies, if you want to add something to whatever you guys doing.
Honestly, I think probably
Don't-
just enjoying a quiet breakfast, the two of us, and enjoying the food.
Probably, small talk, stuff like that. This is kind of the first time any of you guys have really had a chance to sit down and talk to each other when bad things weren't trying to kill you constantly.
Yeah, really, hey? Holy crap. This is new.
Like having breakfast, like even when you guys slept in taverns and stuff like that, there was I actually think the last tavern you guys were in was the one where you fought the pirates.
The last legitimate tavern, yeah, that was
Yeah.
like the second episode.
And Fade went and inflicted wounds to him to nothingness. Or two of them, I think.
That's where we had one eye, and I pissed him off.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a new experience for you guys. No one that you know of is currently trying to kill you, or at least no one that can kill you. Obviously, you guys have been attacked while you've been in the Feywild, but
I think
what?
I think I after a couple more bites, I look at Avok and I don't know what to tell him because I mean, like, I can infer what I want to infer, but I also want to fuck with him because, like, I fucked with him from the start. I like commanded him to just like apologize or some shit like right away, and I think that he's gonna let this play. But like I said, he's kind of centered, and he knows that they're not on a clock, but they also are, because the driving force for his life has basically said hurry. And even though I don't know how to get there, I know that we have to do something. So I am going to look at Avok and say, my path is not clear, but as things have happened before, I know what I need to do, and I need to get us back. We need to figure out how to get back. Whatever that looks like, we need to do it. So we need to be making moves. Like, let's finish out today. Let's provision ourselves. We're in a new place. Maybe get a map or something. Find a guide, maybe. But we need to make moves. We can't just sit here. We're not going to accomplish anything staying here in the city.
I fucking really, I still want to do my thing. That arena fighting pit thing, I noticed it was intriguing, but I mean, if we have obviously it's more important shit. That was really just for me to vent.
Let's take the day. It's fine. Let's take the day. Let's center yourself. I know who you are to a degree. I know what you want. I know what you need to release. But if you need to fight, go start a fight.
Nude.
Yep. We're good.
So you guys, you finish up breakfast. Are there any other conversations you guys want to have over breakfast, or?
I figured once we were done, we'd probably go over.
Yeah, you guys have kind of an agreement that once you're ready, you'll meet downstairs in like the lobby restaurant area of the inn.
Okay.
All right, so you guys all head downstairs with your stuff and everything, and when you get down there, what do you guys do?
Alright, guys, so this is what I want, technically. I mean, be willing to chime in. I definitely want to talk to some military people about getting stuff for me, because you guys got stuff for you, but I felt like shipped yesterday, so I want to do that. Anything you guys have thought out?
I'd love to find a library. I want to learn as much as I can about this war and about the separation between the planes and anything that might help us. And maybe a library will help with that. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel the call to pursue that as well.
Okay.
And he's not saying I'm going to go with you.
Of course. Alright, Kata, how's about me and you hit up some military districts and let these two have fun at the library?
Okay.
And I look at Avok and say, if they have another one of those belts you were talking about, pick up an extra.
I'll see what I can do, buddy. You two enjoy.
So as you guys start to leave, the concierge basically kind of turns to you and goes, "Oh, excuse me, were you needing the assistance of a guide today? In addition to your room being paid for the next week, the palace was kind enough to pay for a guide for your use should you need it for the next week as well. So
Sounds good. We need two. Me and my friend here, we're going to talk to some military people. Those two, they want to go to a library. So, yeah.
Certainly, I will ring one of the Porters Guild. It will be just a moment. And he goes over, and there's a kind of book, just like a row of different books, all sitting. All sitting at the on this relatively large counter, and he goes up to one and opens it up and writes something, and you guys feel this just very faint magic, and he sits there waiting, and then he looks like he's reading something, and he comes back and he's like, "Oh yes, they should be here within 10 to 15 minutes. If you'd like, you may spend the time in the restaurant, though seems that you certainly enjoyed your breakfast already. We do have some very nice, refreshing kind of drinks that give you energy for the day. Very refreshing. If you'd like to try one of them at the bar."
Might I also ask how that book worked? That was fascinating.
Oh, it's message paper. It's made of message paper. It's a relatively simple enchantment. We use it. Most of the nicer hotels use it as well as some military. It's basically the paper is enchanted so that what one writes on one sheet of this paper appears on a paired sheet of paper, and they bind these paired sheets into books, and we use that to order porters, order guides, really anything that our guests would need. We have books with various parts of the city.
That is
So yes, it's
fascinating. Wow, thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that pick me up drink restaurant, I guess I go.
You head over to the bar, and you ask for one of these drinks, and the barkeep kind of goes around and mixes quite a few different things. Willow, some of them you recognize as different juices, and some of them you don't recognize at all. None of it you can tell is alcohol or anything like that. And what they put in front of you is this slightly orange tinted but still translucent clear drink that seems to be bubbling. And he goes, "That will be 1 silver piece, sir."
Yeah, here, have a gold.
"Thank you, sir." And he pockets a gold piece. "Anything for you, miss?" When you down it, the first thing you notice is it burns slightly, as like super carbonated beverages do when you just kind of down them. And it's really, really light. It's really refreshing. And it kind of opens your eyes a little bit. You know, you feel after a minute or so, you start feeling a little bit more energy.
I just drank Red Bull, essentially.
Kind of. Energy drink like, not quite as bad for you. Magic does lovely things.
Awesome.
The rest of you?
Yeah. A fruit juice? Anything local? I don't know. Something I never tried before.
Certainly. And again, he mixes a few things in this one. Interestingly enough, the top layer is red, and then there's orange, and then yellow, and then this kind of pale green. These different layers of whatever it is, and he puts it in front of you. And he goes, "It's customary to use the stir stick in there to mix it all together before you drink it. This is simply a presentation."
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And you drink it. Very, very fruity, very sugary, almost dessert-like in how sweet it is.
Okay.
Yes, and that
Is
will
this-
be five copper pieces for that, milady.
Did we split up the money last time? Did we?
Yeah, I think we did.
I don't recall us doing that. I think we still
I
have...
think Avok had all of it.
I do think
Yeah, that's right.
because I don't have anything written down.
Yeah, because
Well, you're all like
after I
you're
was
all
wheeling
right there.
dealing for those potions in the bags of holding and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I told Avok to pay him.
Yeah.
I did. I forgot how much I paid him. I didn't write that down.
I have notes. I'll look back.
Oh, thank goodness.
Anyway, let's assume you guys have
I
enough.
had 5 copper. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 copper is a pretty paltry sum.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you all get any drinks that you want. Again, depending on what you purchase, they range in price from about 5 copper to about a silver. So feel free to get whatever drinks. After, again, about 10 minutes, you see a man show up. This one looks different than you're used to seeing. He has this very, very dark brown, almost black hair. His skin has this kind of almost gravelly tone to it. It's a relatively dark tone. And it almost seems it almost seems like he has like a layer of dust or something on him, and he's very, very stiff as he comes in, and as he comes in, he goes directly to you guys and goes, "Hello, I am your guide, Collingworth. Tell me where you would like me to take you."
Now, did Avok request 2, or did he request 1, dude?
I think I
He
reflected.
specifically requested 2.
Okay.
One has shown up.
All right. I think that Willow and I should get going. We're going to have a lot of reading to do if we find something.
Where would you like me to take you?
To a library?
I was informed you requested 2 guides. We can, of course, facilitate that request. However, the palace has only paid for 1 guide. The rate for a guide from the Porters Guild is 1 gold piece per hour.
Mm.
So if you would like to hire a second one, you may. Otherwise, I may service both of you without too much difficulty. I know this city very, very well, and can, whichever group I am not with, I will leave this. And he takes out a small stone with a rune carved in it. And you, Willow, you'd be familiar with sending stones. Yeah, basically, magic walkie-talkies. If you have need of me when I am not there, simply request, and I will find you. For the other 2 that wish not to go to the library, where would you like to go?
Military area, like quarter, like stuff where you can get like weaponry and shit.
I will take you to the military district to the commander of the local garrison, and you may speak with him about acquiring such things. I do not have access to such things myself, nor does most of the civilian populace of the city. The library is somewhat closer, so we will start with that if you would all follow me.
I think we get going.
Right. So you guys head out. He brings you. It takes about a 15-minute walk to bring you to another one of those large teleportation buildings. And you guys step in, and when you step out, you are in a very, very different part of the city. You can see a lot of people dressed in wizard's robes, walking around with staves and things like that. Willow, you pick up bits of conversation as you come out, and people are discussing, magic theory and, the benefits of, using an unseen servant over mage hand and, all these other kind of very magical things. You see around you are some residences as well as some shops and things like that look like they cater a little bit more towards wizards and things like that. You see bookshops and arcane supply shops and things like that. Things you didn't really see in the trade district because they have a relatively limited focus. And the guy goes, if you will follow me, I will take you to the Grand Library. And he starts walking off.
Sorry, yes, we're following.
Okay. So he goes, and it takes another 20 minutes, and eventually you come to this building that you've been able to see since you got out, and you didn't realize that's where he was taking you, but it's the largest building in the area by far, probably a good 6 or 7 stories tall, easily takes up a city block, and has this massive set of stairs that go up to this big set of double doors. And the porter goes in to the double doors. He opens the double doors and simply kind of bows his head and waits for you to pass through them. I'm assuming you all do.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So as you guys go in, he follows you, and you see a man coming up to you going, yes, I will be with you in just one moment. And then he sees a porter. He sees the porter and goes, oh, headfully sorry. Hello there. I am one of the librarians here. You may refer to me as librarian or sir. You need not spend the time to learn my name. I barely know it myself. Anyway, just a little humor there. What can I do for you? The porter goes, the Eternal Empress has asked that any information these people request be made available to them within reason. And they both kind of look at each other for a moment and give kind of a knowing glance. Goes, I understand. And immediately he kind of focuses on Avok. Will all of you be reading the books? Can all of you read the books?
Of course. Though I do believe some of our party is heading elsewhere for
well, then I must ask, who would like to browse the wealth of information we have here?
I raised my hand.
Mm-hmm. Willow almost stands a little taller, a little excited, and he's like,
wonderful. If you would come with me, we can start searching for information for you.
Thank you.
Porter, you may leave. Thank you, Master Librarian.
I'll make sure I get the settings down before he goes.
And the porter turns to you. We will now be off to the local garrison.
Great.
And he walks out the door, holds it for you guys, and Kata and Avok head off. And we will get back to them. Fade and Willow, he goes, so what interests you? I can tell simply by your aura that one of you is very skilled in the magical arts.
Thank you.
I assume you would like to study the wealth of knowledge we have on magic theory, perhaps read some of the tomes that describe the thought processes of some of our greatest mages and wizards. You, from judging from your appearance, follow a more divine path. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah.
Well, we have some sacred texts here, though, to be honest, your best bet is to go to one of the local temples. They all have selections of sacred texts and examinations and interpretations that have been made over the centuries.
Actually, while as wonderful as the magic text sounds today, we're looking more for histories of the Verdant Empire and of the Elemental War and the claim ancient.
Histories, of course, we have quite a few. We have found there are certain portions of history that the other factions attempt to use against us, so certain aspects of our history are under lock and key and will require some approval before allowing anyone, citizen or not, to view. Was there Pacific, my word, I can't even speak anymore. Was there a specific part of history you were looking for? Have I lost you all? Of course I have. But I haven't dropped any frames. That's lovely.
Hello.
There we go. I can see all of you but Avok. There we go. I had a brief glitch in the Matrix.
So the rest of us.
No idea what that was about. Let me just... Am I no longer streaming?
Uh-oh.
Hold please. It says that I haven't dropped any frames, but it also says I'm not streaming on my channel.
Oh dear.
There we go. Sorry for the brief interruption. Those of you that are watching, I must have had a hiccup in my internet connection, but the recording didn't stop or anything like that. So if you want to know the brief, 30 seconds where I wasn't online, it'll be on the YouTube video. So going back, the last question he asked was there a specific period of history you were looking for information about?
Well, the Elemental Wars and I
That
suppose.
technically isn't as much history as it
No.
is.
But more the start of it?
Well, much of that is controlled by the military, citing concerns of public safety and the like. But I can bring you to the section of our history where it talks about before the war and history around the war. Specifics, though, you might have a better chance speaking with the military. But we can go, and he brings you over to a very small teleportation circle and goes, simply step on this circle, and as you do, you are lost. You there are just rows and rows and rows and rows of books. And you hear kind of a bell chime, and you realize you're still standing on the teleportation circle and it's starting to activate again. So you step off, and you see Fade, who looks, again, a little confused because you're just surrounded by bookshelves now. And he steps off, and then the librarian's there. Okay, we must go this way. And he takes you around a few corners in that, and eventually he brings you to a more open area. There's a table there. There's a few chairs, and it's just surrounded by the ends of different rows of books. And he goes, if you would wait here, I will bring a few volumes of our history. And he leaves, and he comes back with a pile of about 15 books just kind of floating behind him. And he kind of points, and they very slowly go on the table in stacks of 3. And he goes, this, starting from this end, is before the Elemental Wars and before the Eternal Empress took her throne. These 3 volumes discuss her coronation and the first few centuries of her rule. And then these remaining volumes are all about when the war started and the period of time shortly after that, the next few 100 years or so. Would you require anything else from me at this moment?
I look to Fade and see if there's anything else.
I look at this man, and are there any private collectors in town
Of
old works?
Yes, there are quite a few that pride themselves in owning first edition copies of some of the text here, but the Grand Library of Alandwil, we pride ourselves in having the originals or one of the first copies of every book written in
Of course.
the Verdant Empire. So while there may be some who have some rare tomes and things like that they own, we would at least have copies of them here.
Of
With
course,
a few rare exceptions of books that really need no, shall we say, they don't deserve to withstand the test of time, if you know what I mean.
Poetry, I know.
No, one of our finest sections is the great Eladrin poets, and there are actually a few Genasi poets that are simply astounding with their use of their chosen element and how they describe different things. It's certainly interesting. No, I'm speaking more along the lines of, well, anyway, enough about that. If you need me again, you'll notice at the end of every bookshelf there is a small rune. Simply touch the rune and a librarian will come to assist you, or will contact me and I will come to assist you at whatever is easiest for us. Have a lovely day.
Thank you,
And
sir.
he walks away, and a minute or two after he walks away, you feel that familiar feeling of magic, and you hear the teleportation circle activate. And you guys are effectively alone in a giant room of books.
Willow takes a moment, being a little overwhelmed and loving this place, and then... Okay. So,
anything specifically you're looking for in the books?
I mean, really trying to figure out what caused the fighting, if there's any mention of Christopher and that whole population leaving, or the planes being cut off, or
Okay.
anything else.
Go
Right.
ahead and make me an investigation check. Fade, if you want to help her, that would give her advantage.
Sure.
Okay. So you guys both start poring over the books. Some of them are written in a very old form of Eladrin that Willow, you just wouldn't speak because you'd never been exposed to it. Fade, you probably learned it when you were a child, but have not actively read it in decades. So rough reading a little bit, but not impossible. What did you get, Willow?
24.
Nice.
All right.
It was bad.
Looking through, you notice again the everything that you read in this area doesn't describe anything shorter than about 800 to 1,000 years ago is roughly as far as this goes.
Okay.
So the sundering of the plains and the cutoff of the prime material plane didn't happen until roughly about 500-600 years ago.
Okay.
So this period of time just simply doesn't have that in it.
Okay.
However, the elemental war started about 1,000 years ago, so you do have some stuff from before it, some stuff that happened right around it, and some stuff after it. And the basic gist that you get is before the war, the kingdoms were, for the most part, friendly, but they all had their own interests in mind, as most countries do. So there is trade and things like that between the four elemental kingdoms and the Verdant Empire. But there were always little skirmishes at the various borders. Nothing that would border on war, just small factions that didn't represent like the government itself, but small factions would get into little territorial disputes, and little city states would try to annex different parts and things like that. But for the most part, the governments themselves work together. For the most part, they seem to trust each other. Before the Eternal Empress was crowned, her father, who is simply known as the Verdant Emperor, was the ruler and had been for about 600-700 years. And you don't have anything from before his rule. He died kind of suddenly. It doesn't really go into too much description as to what caused it in the books that you have, but you notice that she was crowned empress at a very young age. She was only about 60 or 70 years old, which for Eladrin is very, very young in this realm. And she was crowned to almost universal praise. Like she had kind of grown up in the public eye. She was kind of the favored daughter of the entire empire. Everybody loved her. She used to go out and intermingle with the people, and just a very, very well-loved person. When she took the throne, everyone was overjoyed. Again, she ruled for about 100, 200 years before the actual inciting event isn't mentioned in any of the histories that you have. It's almost like you're missing a book. But you see afterwards, the view of the Eternal Empress changed from the populace. She changed from this incredibly loving, or the populace viewed her differently. She went from, in their eyes, this very loving, very benevolent ruler to a very wise and brilliant tactician, a great defender of the Verdant Empire. So the descriptors of her changed from, basically one book to the next. And it became much more militaristic without any sort of malice or anything in the writing. You just notice that the descriptors that they use change. And like I said, the war's been going on for roughly about 1,000 years. From what you can tell, it seems like the most aggressive of the four elemental kingdoms has been the Scorched Dominion in the north. And the Aqueous Realm in the south has repeatedly been accused of using espionage and infiltration to attempt assassinations, to attempt coups and things like that, using the predominant race in the Aqueous Empire is the Changelings, which can basically look like anybody. And you notice throughout all the texts, the Genasi are mentioned pretty extensively as kind of being used as grunt troops and not really cannon fodder, but they make up the bulk of the lower ranks. The Changelings, again, are kind of the ruling race in the Aqueous Empire. The Goliaths are the ruling race in the Terrestrial Commonwealth. The Aarakocra are the ruling race in the Tempest Sovereignty, and then the Warforged are the kind of ruling race in the Scorched Dominion. So, and then the Genasi, you do find a little history of them. Basically, millennia ago, humans came over from the prime material plane, and they kind of settled in different areas. The humans that stayed in the Verdant Empire eventually started taking on more elven-like appearances and things like that, and eventually turned into kind of a hybrid elf human thing that you guys actually haven't seen any of these, Fey Genasi. But everyone else, like the humans that lived in the Tempest Sovereignty, eventually started taking on characteristics of the wind and things like that. And the ones that lived in the Terrestrial Commonwealth started taking on and slowly being changed by the environment over centuries and centuries of families living there. And that's where the Genasi came from, is they were humans that transformed into this entire different race. and they all have a very strong connection to their specific element. So yeah, that's basically what you find out as far as what started the war. But again, you're basically missing a book. The actual history of the period when the war actually started isn't there.
What? How far away was the military quarter? Do we have an idea of how far away they were going to have to go?
No idea.
All right.
And on that note, Kata and Evok, you guys are led away. You're led back to the teleportation circle. But when you get in there, there's additional steps that he has to take. When he goes, he tells the person where he's going. He has to bring out what looks like a holy symbol or a badge or something like that. And the wizard that's using it kind of looks at it, and you see him activate some sort of magic to look at it, and then kind of nods and asks everyone else on the teleportation circle to step off and step out of the room. And then you guys are teleported, and as you step out, the part of the city that you're in is drastically different. None of the buildings here are taller than 2 stories. Most of them are 1 story tall. There's a lot of temporary buildings around here and kind of hastily constructed buildings. And you can see the wilderness probably a mile or so away, but you can see there's a wall, relatively decent-sized wall, and then the other side is the wilderness. So you guys are obviously at the very edge of the city. And there are people kind of walking around in formation. You see a few people walking around on their own, but everything is very military here. Avok, you kind of are familiar with what a military base looks like and kind of feels like. Everyone is walking around like they have a purpose. A few people kind of look at you a little weird until one person comes up and speaks to the porter quietly enough that you guys can't even hear him, and then turns to you and goes, he's an Eladrin. He goes, I will be your escort around the garrison. You will not leave my side for any reason. If you do, you will be arrested. I can take you to the garrison commander if you would like. Otherwise, I would need to know what it is that you are. What is your purpose for being here?
Better equipped with more than magical variety.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that.
I need better things to kill things with.
Oh, you're looking for weapons. Those must be approved through the garrison commander. I will take you to him shortly. Porter, if we are in need of your services, we will find you. Please wait by the teleporter and do not wander. And the porter goes, yes, of course. And he just turns on his heel and starts walking, not even waiting for you guys.
Give up, Kata.
Yeah.
Good. So you guys walk for probably about 20 or 30 minutes. And again, you walk past people sparring, you walk past a few different forges and things like that, where weapons are being made and things like that, and armor. And eventually you come to this relatively large building, the largest building you've seen here. And as you walk inside, you see a massive table with pieces all over it. And you see an Eladrin man in full plate mail with his helmet off. The plate mail itself is interlaced with electrum and gold and silver, and the armor itself just looks very, very impressive. And you can see kind of resting against the table beside him is a very brilliant jeweled sword and almost mirror-like shield. So he's sitting there and he sees the man go there, and he goes, "What is the meaning of this?" "Sir, these are guests of the crown. We have been asked to help them in any way that we can. I do not have time for this. I am preparing my troops to go to the front. You," and he points at Avok, "what is it that you want?"
Well, seeing as this area seems to have all the stuff that I like, as opposed to your trade districts and whatever. Yeah.
You're here looking for weapons.
Well, I'm kind of good on the weaponry, if you haven't noticed the axe.
Yes, I did notice that. It's rather difficult not to, and I was about to tell you I sincerely doubted us being able to provide you with something that would rival it.
Well, yeah. So here's what I'm looking for. Let's see. One of the shopkeepers mentioned something about belts. Like you got some sort of magical belts for a guy like me.
Belt of giant strength? We have... They are incredibly difficult to create. Very valuable to our troops. They are generally given to our greatest warriors who are fighting along the front. If you wish to procure one, I'm sorry, we have none to spare for someone that is not helping with the war effort. There would simply be no reason for us to deprive one of our soldiers who is risking his life for the Verdant Empire simply for a tourist to make himself seem stronger.
Okay, first off, I have no problem in the strength department. What I'm looking for is more like the beefier department. That did specify the.
You're looking
I
for
want to take more. I want to be able to take more hits.
something that improves your overall health or constitution.
Yeah, words like that. I don't. Whatever.
Again, we have access to a few rare magic items. The ability to make them is limited to our most powerful artificers, and again, quite simply, there is no reason I would deprive one of my men the ability to live through a killing blow simply to give it to you.
How much is it worth? I've got lots of money.
It is not a matter of money. My men are dying every single day in an attempt to end this war. Do you really think we have so much surplus of supplies that we can just give away things that could possibly save my men's lives? And he kind of sits there and he looks at you and he kind of puts his head in his hand. And he turns to you and he goes, I can tell you've a taste for war. I can tell you have seen it and lived through it. Can you honestly tell me, were you in my position, with hundreds of thousands of men under your command, if you had the items that you describe, that you would sell them to someone not even involved in the war that your men are dying for every day?
Dude, I was a grunt, okay? I really don't have any opinion with that.
If the man that you fought beside could have been saved by one of these items, and you found that your commander had given it away for money, would you serve that commander?
To be fair, I really didn't have a choice at the time. I was pretty much cannon fodder. I was a good soldier. It was a shitty setup.
I do not have... I cannot spare the items you ask. Some finer weapons that will hold their edge, possibly. Maybe an enchanted set of armor or two, but things like that are far too valuable and far too rare for me to simply give away when I could be giving them to my men. If you wish to help with the offensive, I might be able to provide you with some things along that lines, but you would need to prove yourself in battle before I would risk wasting one of these items and having it fall into the hands of the enemy when they took it from your dead corpse.
This is bullshit.
Avok just turns around. When he happened to notice my little branding at that point? The whole thing?
It depends on what you're wearing. My understanding was you generally tended to keep it hidden.
No, practically. It's out in the open at the time. So.
Okay. So yeah, he might see it. I'll roll.
Okay.
See if it means anything to him. As you turn around, he seems to immediately go back to his planning and his strategizing. And if he did see it, he hasn't said anything to you. Kata, you're there as well. You watch Avok get kind of frustrated and kind of storm out. Anything you want to do, Kata?
Is there anything I can do? I mean, parlaying seems to be shot dead in the water right now.
He seems to be very occupied with what he's doing. I mean, you can talk to him. From what you've gathered, asking for to purchase magic items off him is probably going nowhere. But there are other things, like you can ask for mercenary work. You can you can offer you have healing service. You have healing skills. You can offer your services to him. The only thing 100% for certain right now is that he's not interested in selling magic items that enhance strength or enhance constitution.
If there are any of your men that are injured, I may be able to heal them.
And that kind of makes him stop, and he looks up. He goes, "I'm sorry. You do not look to be a cleric."
I'm not a druid.
Oh, well, druids are fairly rare in these parts. Ever since the prime material plane was cut off from us, the orcs used to be the masters of the druidic knowledge, and we simply don't have many here. To be honest, here in the garrison, there are plenty of clerics to help my men and cure those who can be cured. Outside the city, it is a very different story. Not even on the front. Patrols on the outside of the city run into beasts and things like that, are in constant need of medical aid, and there are sometimes that our clerics are simply not able to move fast enough, whereas druids have abilities that allow them to traverse and get to areas most others can't. So if you're offering your services as a healer, I would gladly take them and pay you well for them. They simply are not needed inside the city.
Okay. Well,
If your friend was willing to lend his axe to our cause, we would greatly accept it. I am not above accepting mercenary work as long as I can trust the mercenaries. But he seems a trustworthy sort. The Empress obviously trusts him. So if you're willing to lend service, I am willing to pay, and pay well. I simply... In the city, we have no need of money. We have all the gold and platinum we could need. I mean, look at the Empress's palace. It is covered in gold and platinum. It is not money that we lack. It is troops that are willing to fight a war that has lasted millennia. Over a millennium. Every day I have more and more troops that simply give up, seeing no end in sight.
Sadly, our group declined that offer to because we also have war to fight on material plane.
Well, best of luck with that. Our mages have spent the better part of 400 years trying to figure out how to get back there. To be honest, they don't even know how you got here.
Neither do we.
The offer stands. If you change your mind, simply ask a porter to bring you here, and we can discuss your terms. To be honest, seeing the heroes from the Prime Material Plane fighting alongside the Verdant Empire would be a morale boost this army sorely needs.
Thank you anyway.
Apologize to your friend for me, would you? I may have come off more curt than I intended.
I know.
And he kind of waves you off and goes back to his table. You're led out, and Avok is standing there, pacing. What are you doing?
Yeah, just facing.
Okay. So you kind of more feel Kata come up than you do see her. And you notice her just kind of staring up at you like a kitten.
No luck, but if we
That's
change
fine.
mind, he is open to any mercenary work.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I don't blame him. He's right.
Also, he said he's sorry for how he acted.
Yeah.
Suddenly you hear a voice behind you. If you have no other business here, I must take you back to the teleportation circle and your porter. The military quarter and the garrison are limited to military personnel only, and those with business with the
Alright,
military.
lead the way.
Okay.
Anyways, as he leads on, I'd like to do a little conversing with Kata.
Okay.
Yeah.
He seems to kind of understand the idea of he only hears the things that he's told he's supposed to hear. So you notice when you guys start talking in a slightly lower voice, he increases the distance slightly between you and him, and, makes obvious that he's not attempting to listen in.
I was listening. I was listening to that conversation between you and the chief guy. It's not our fight, but I don't know. I get the feeling we're not going to learn anything while we're still in the city. Maybe if
Hopefully
we do
the
some.
hopefully the others learn something.
On that note, you return back to Fade and Willow.
Mhm.
I think
Go ahead.
I think that as well as kind of digging through those histories, Fade's really kind of he picked up that there's things that we're not going to be told, and with that little bit of information, like, he's not willing to spend as much time as I think he was hoping to here. Like, if everybody can access what we're going to be able to access, then it would be common knowledge, the things that we would need to know, and we're not going to find it here. So,
Yeah.
Fade has one more thing that he wanted to do.
Go ahead and real quick roll me an insight check.
Can somebody roll a d20 for me? My thing's locked up.
I was about to, I rolled an 18.
Okay, that'll be a 27.
So, between the conversations that you've had, you get the idea that there's freely available information and then there's privileged information,
Yeah.
and you don't think that you can't get access to privileged information. You think you just have to give a reason. Like, you'll basically have to go, hey, we want to know this particular, and you kind of have to ask for it. He's not going to just give it to you. Is
Sure.
kind of what you got. So it's not
I
that
think-
they won't give it to you. It's you have to ask the right questions.
Yeah, and I think just not wanting to waste the time
Okay.
looking, he's going to. How do we summon our little buddy again?
Again, there's
Question.
a rune on the end
Yeah,
of.
we just pressed, or I pressed the rune.
Mhm.
I look at Willow and just like I don't think we have time for this, and I slam the room. I'll actually like forcefully hit it, and
Okay.
when he shows up, I will kind of rope, not beating around the bush, be like, we need to know about what we're facing and what's attacking our home. Can you show me something on the seven deadly sins or the noble virtues? We need more information to know what we're dealing with.
Well, that's ancient history. No one's
It
heard of the seven deadly sins in.
That's all good and fine, but we know one. We've met one. We've interacted with one of the sins, and I know that's weird to hear, but I need more.
We're in the wrong section then. Follow me, I guess. And he goes back to the teleportation circle and kind of gestures for you to go there. And again,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, me too.
teleport, and when you get to the next place, something is very, very different about this place. First of all, there's kind of a musty smell that wasn't present in the other one. I mean, you could smell, if you've ever been in a really big library, that smell of books, that's just everywhere here. This, though, has this kind of musty, almost damp smell to the area. And as you look around, you see actual walls, which you didn't before. You just saw just rows upon rows of bookshelves. The area that you've gone into, you actually see walls. And the bookshelves themselves are much older. The books themselves look much older. You notice there are certain bookshelves that actually have chains and bars across them, preventing people from getting at the books and things like that. And he goes, "Please just follow me." And he kind of goes through. This is the religious history section about the gods and things like that. There are certain things that the temples prefer that the regular populace doesn't find out on their own, that they have someone from the temple to interpret for them, which is why so many of these are under lock and key. The information you're asking about, however, is not forbidden. It's just simply not really ever asked for. And he takes you to another area with a table, and he goes, "If you would sit down, please." And he wanders off, and he comes back with a single book, and he goes, "This is one of the oldest tomes we have. Much of it we can't even decipher. It's written in languages most of us no longer read. Some of it, even with the most powerful spells we know, seems untranslatable for some odd reason. But there is quite a bit in Eladrin, which I assume you can read."
I think so.
"Good luck with this. It should describe what you're looking for."
And then I'm going to have we seen anything that says like magic is allowed in here or not allowed? I mean, obviously there's enchantments and stuff.
Yeah, there's magic all around you. You haven't seen any, please don't use magic in the library.
All right,
Signs.
I want to cast sending to this guy and ask him if he has anything that he could put aside inconspicuously on the chosen.
He
So yeah,
replies kind of confused, saying that the Chosen War is generally not something that they allow outsiders to read. He'll have to get permission from one of the head librarians. Take 20 minutes.
Okay. Fade pretends to care about what he's saying
Okay.
and waves goodbye.
So he leaves. And yeah, you guys have the book. Investigation check. Whoever rolls it, the other one can get it. Or whoever rolls it can get advantage.
Take care of it, Willow.
Uh, 20.
Okay. Looking through this, you discover a few interesting things. Throughout the book, and it's a big book, there are portions that are just prose, kind of history. And you learn a little bit about the 7 deadly sins, the 7 noble virtues, and things like that. But intermixed between them, you notice something that if it wasn't for the fact that you had to do this when you were designing the airships, you would have completely missed it. One of the things that you did was you were required to make your notes and things not just in code, but kind of in arcane code, to where someone that wasn't you, with the right, basically unlocking spell, would not only be able to read your notes, but be able to understand them. And so the things that were simply just not translatable, you're kind of identifying as, oh, this is arcane code. But it's really, really ancient magic. Magic you've never seen before. You just recognize certain things in it that you're like, oh, I did that. I know you have no idea how to decode it, but you do recognize that's what it is. As far as the 7 deadly sins and the 7 noble virtues, the basics of what you find out are in the you get bits and pieces. They were a force from that technically predates the Chosen Wars and the Chosen in general. And it seems that the 7 deadly sins and the 7 noble virtues were Tiefling and Azmar, respectively. The sins were Tiefling and the virtues were Azmar. And they served the gods, and were given very specific tasks. However, they were not blessed with any sort of divine power like Chosen were or anything like that. They were simply the strongest, most powerful tieflings or Azmar, and they would eventually part of the tiefling and Azmar culture from, again, the beginning of time, was that they were kind of born and bred to serve the gods, and so it was this great honor to be powerful enough to be chosen as one of the 7 deadly sins. You do find a passing reference to the Muses once, and only once, and then you see a reference to the Muses. You see some language that describes the Muses in a very negative connotation, and then they simply, like, you see a couple pages where they talk about the Muses, and they talk about them, and they kind of build up and talk about them in a very negative light, and then they're just not in the book anymore. and there's references to the 7 deadly sins and the 7 noble virtues, and somehow relating to the muses, and then the 7 deadly sins and virtues keep going, and the muses just, they're not mentioned, they're not a part of the book anymore. And again, it's almost like there's a page or a chapter missing, even though there's no tears or anything in the book or anything. You run into one of those arcane coded.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you've never actually heard the term muses before. But yeah, the basics are, these were, the Tiefling Society and Azmar Society were specifically created by the gods to serve them. And the 7 deadly sins and the 7 noble virtues were the personal servants of the gods. And they generally, the sins and the virtues did not get along. There were basically two the deities are kind of split in half. Half of them live in the 9 hells, half of them live in Elysium. So half of them in Tartarus, half of them in Elysium. And the reason that they live in the different places seems to be, from what you can read, is an ideological difference, as opposed to, it's not like all the chaotic evil ones or all the evil ones live in Tartarus or anything like that. There's some sort of ideological difference between the two, and that's why they basically split the divine realm into Elysium and Tartarus towards the beginning of time, because of this schism of ideas that's not really elaborated on in this book.
Sure.
So, yes. Anything else you want to, any specific things that you were looking for that I haven't described? Obviously, there's 7 of each.
Sure.
Though if you're going to ask me to list them, I have to look them up again.
That's okay, I know.
I know the sins better than I do the virtues. Because the sins, Full Metal Alchemist, I can just do that. But nobody ever talks about the 7 noble virtues.
No, that's true. And neither are in the Bible, so.
Well, depends. The
Not
Catholics.
like a list. No.
The Catholics, in one of their extra books, if I remember correctly, they have them somewhere written down. I don't know if it's one of the extra books or it's part of. I can't remember the word right now, but it's just part of practice. But the Catholics have a real big thing about the 7 deadly sins and noble virtues. They were actually really, really popular in medieval times.
Oh, sure, but never in the Bible. Anyway.
At least not called that.
No.
They're all like inferred, like people inferred them from reading certain verses and going, well, that sounds like this, and I'll create this.
Sure.
Kind of like really good fan fiction.
Jesus.
I'm going to be excommunicated, having never been a part of the Catholic Church.
Oh.
I have just pissed off the Pope. So I'm starting from the things that he's done. I'm starting to wonder if you can piss off the Pope. Like this new guy's pretty cool Pope.
So Willow is flipping through the book
and Fade, you get this because you have to basically translate for her as well. So you both get this information about the sins and the virtues, and again, the distinction. What?
I can read it.
Can you read Ancient Eladrin?
I had comprehend languages. I would have immediately used
yeah. Then yeah, you would be able to.
Yes.
So
I just kind of close the book and look at Fade and go, we need to know how to get the missing information. We need to ask for that process, because there's things missing that don't make sense.
I don't know who to ask. I don't think this guy is going to be as forthcoming as I hope he would be.
There's one way to find out.
Well, he'll be coming backwards, hopefully. Wait, no, I didn't hear that conversation. I don't know if you shared
I'm
the
good.
back.
No, I'm good.
Well, by the time you guys get to this point, he has returned. And you asked specifically about the Chosen War, right?
Yep.
He returns, and you see a priest with him wearing the symbol of the Dark Lady.
Okay.
And he comes in, and the priest turns to the librarian and goes, "You may go." And the librarian just spins around, leaves. And the priest turns to you and goes, "You wear her symbol. Why?"
As do you.
"I know why I wear her symbol. I do not know why you do. Please, enlighten me."
Boy, what does he say here? Where I come from, I am a servant of hers, and I've heard her voice.
Have you now? Would it surprise you to learn that I have served the Dark Lady for more than 4 times your lifespan? And yet in all that time, I have never heard her voice. Nor was the priest who taught me, nor did the priest who taught her. In fact, no one has heard the voice of the Dark Lady since the era that you have asked for information about. So I ask you again, why do you serve?
I do not serve, I do as I'm bid. I've pledged myself to her, and fuck it, he will... Are there any shadows in this room at all?
Yeah, lots of shadows.
I walk over to it, and I power up my new rune, which I don't fully grasp yet, but it will activate in shadow, so I do that.
He sees the rune, he sees the symbol of the Dark Lady on your gauntlet, and he holds out a hand, and you see him clutch a holy symbol, and you hear him say the words, "Reveal your secrets to me." And suddenly it seems like the room disappears, and it's just you and him.
Fuck. Okay.
And he's sitting there concentrating, and you can feel him kind of probing, not really your mind, but your soul almost. And suddenly his eyes flash open, and he falls backwards. And then you're back where you were. The rune has deactivated at this point for a reason that you don't understand, because you didn't you didn't expend it or anything.
Well,
And then he stands up, kind of brushes himself off a little bit, and goes, "You are chosen."
and there's some things I'm gonna need.
Do you understand the danger of your existence?
Nope. That's why I'm here.
I will give you the information that you seek. But first, you must allow me to teach you exactly how dangerous you truly are. Do we have an agreement?
Sure. I look at Willow and just like, okay.
And as he sits there, he takes his holy symbol out, and you hear him whisper magical incantations, and you feel searing pain instantly wash over your body. And again, you're alone with him in some place that you don't know. And
From
you-
my
from
from my
your
perspective, does he disappear or does he just look gone?
From your perspective, nothing's happening.
So Faye just goes very still.
This technically is all happening inside of a moment.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
yeah, you don't even realize it's happening.
Okay.
So Fade, you sit there and you feel your armor. You feel this just wave of energy blowing against you, and you feel your armor slowly getting ripped off, and your clothing and padding underneath it burning away until you're sitting there, basically with just the gauntlet on and the holy symbol shield in your hand and nothing else. And then you feel this searing light start burning away your flesh and your muscles and your bones, and you're still there, but you're basically a being of energy.
Very cool. Pretty scary though.
As as this happens, he steps forward and he goes, "You notice there are only two things that have survived this. They were touched and created by her. I have no power to destroy them. I have no power to banish them. I have no control over them whatsoever. They are gifts to you from her. But if you look inside, you are not entirely yourself." And as you kind of see yourself in this out-of-body experience, you see this shard that seems out of place. It's this deep indigo color, and it's right in the center of your being, and you see little indigo tendrils go all across your kind of formless body from it. And suddenly your skin and your muscles, your bone and your armor all returns. Because you have a piece of her in you. Because of that, I nor anyone else cannot truly end your existence completely. They can kill your physical form, prevent you from being able to interact with the world, prevent you from even returning. But that shard of her that she has placed inside you, no mortal can touch it, can affect it. However, were another chosen to meet you, they could. And not only that, this shard of the divine means you have some ability to change the makeup of the world. The gods built the world. The gods separated it to the different planes of existence. They populated it with life. They created its laws. You are not bound by them. When you learn to harness this power, you can change them. You can alter them. Not quite at the level that the Dark Lady can, but in a way no mortal can. And this is why you are so dangerous, and this is why most would tell you you cannot be allowed to exist. Suddenly you're back in the room.
Oh, I'm ready to kill this guy if
Willow,
he starts some shit.
Willow, you notice that Fade is now just instantly sweating profusely. He's breathing heavily.
Are you okay?
And the priest continues, I feel the Dark Lady has a purpose. And until you prove to me that you cannot be trusted with the gift she has given you, I can only assume she has given you this gift on purpose for a very specific goal. And as her servant, it is my duty to help you achieve that goal. But understand, any hint that you are not working towards the goal she desires, and I and the entirety of my order, along with all of the other orders in the Verdant Empire, and more likely than not in all the elemental kingdoms as well, will ensure that you are wiped from existence as much as we can, at least. Do you understand? Willow, having only heard half of that conversation, that sounds incredibly menacing.
Oh, she's staring at him with daggers in her head.
It won't come to that. I've pledged myself to her, every part of myself. I'll end my own life before that happens.
And he reaches into his robes and he produces a book. This is a chronicling of the Chosen War from the Chosen of the Dark Lady. She was one of the last Chosen alive at the end of it, and therefore this is one of the more complete histories of it. It does not leave this room. And the librarian you spoke to will never learn of its existence. Do we understand?
We do.
She will not be able to understand it, but you will. When you are finished, simply touch your holy symbol, and I will return. I have left very strict instructions that this area of the library is off limits to everyone until you contact me again. That means everyone You will not have access to food, water, anything, unless you contact me. Understood?
Yes.
Then I hope this answers questions that you have, and that you understand your place in the world better. And I pray the Chosen Wars remain in ancient history. We do not need a repeat of them. And he walks away. And unfortunately, that is where we're going to end it for tonight. I am unfortunately a little bit under the weather.
It's
and
okay,
so
Jody.
I gotta end it. But thank you to everyone that tuned in. If you missed any of this, I do upload everything to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/TrainerJody. Feel free to head over there and check it out, and you can see the entire series there, all the way from day one. I believe this is like episode 58 or 59, somewhere around there. So, otherwise, that's going to be all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.
Bye.